What if everything you've been told about morning routines is wrong? Not slightly wrong, completely wrong. The 5 a.m. wake up, the cold shower, the hour-long workout before sunrise, the influencer standing in their kitchen at 4:47 a.m. holding a green smoothie, looking absolutely delighted about it. That's not what the science says wins the morning. In fact, research shows the people who consistently win their mornings share almost none of those habits. What they share is something much quieter, much simpler, and almost nobody is talking about it. Here's the first thing that will probably shock you. Waking up early doesn't make you more productive. What you do in the first 10 minutes after waking determines everything else. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman has talked extensively about what happens in your brain the moment you open your eyes. Your brain shifts from theta waves, the slow, dreamlike state of sleep, into beta waves, the alert state of waking life. But here's the part nobody mentions. That transition takes between 15 and 30 minutes to complete, which means for the first 15 minutes after your alarm goes off, your brain is still partially in a dream state, unusually open, unusually impressionable. Whatever inputs it receives first get absorbed differently than at any other point in the day. Most people hand that window straight to their phone, to notifications, to other people's opinions and problems and agendas. And they wonder why the rest of the day feels reactive. The second surprise. Here's something that sounds counterintuitive, but has solid research behind it. The people who win their mornings almost never rely on motivation. Psychologist Roy Baumeister spent decades researching willpower. His conclusion, backed by over 100 studies, was stark. Willpower is not a personality trait. It is a finite biological resource, like a battery, and it starts each day fully charged. Every decision you make draws from that battery. What to wear, what to eat, whether to check email or not. Each one costs something. People who win the morning understand this instinctively, so they make almost zero decisions in the morning. Everything is decided the night before. Clothes laid out, first task already chosen, breakfast already planned. So by the time the world starts demanding things from them, their battery is still nearly full, and everyone else's is already at 60%. That single habit, deciding everything the night before, is worth more than any morning routine ever written about. You've probably heard that successful people wake up early. So here's the third surprise. Chronobiology, the science of biological clocks, shows that roughly 40% of people are genetically wired to be evening types. Their cortisol peaks later. Their cognitive performance peaks later. Their bodies are simply built for a different schedule. Researcher Till Ronenberg at the University of Munich studied over 60,000 people and found that forcing a night owl into a 5 a.m. routine is the biological equivalent of permanent jet lag. He called it social jet lag, and it measurably increases stress, impairs cognitive function, and reduces productivity. So the morning routine advice that works for one person can literally harm another. Winning the morning has nothing to do with what time you wake up. It has everything to do with what you do with your first hour, whenever that hour is. The fourth surprise. This one is the most underrated finding in all of morning psychology research. Psychologist William James, one of the founding fathers of modern psychology, argued that the actions you take first set the psychological tone for everything that follows, not just your mood, your entire cognitive frame for the day. When your first action is reactive, scrolling, checking messages, reading news, your brain enters what researchers call a responsive mode. You spend the rest of the day answering, reacting, following. When your first action is intentional, anything you chose rather than something that chose you, your brain enters a generative mode. You spend the rest of the day feeling like the author of your own time, rather than a character in someone else's story. James Clear calls this identity voting in Atomic Habits. Every action is a vote for the kind of person you are. The first vote of the day carries disproportionate weight because it sets the frame for every vote that follows. One intentional action before anything else. That's it. That's the whole secret. Here's the final one. And this might be the most practically useful thing in this entire video. Most people think the key to a good morning is a long, elaborate routine. Meditation, journaling, exercise, reading, gratitude practice, all before 7 a.m. But research on habit formation tells a completely different story. Psychologist B.J. Fogg at Stanford spent years studying what actually makes habits stick. His conclusion was that complexity kills consistency. The longer and more elaborate the routine, the more likely it collapses the moment life gets slightly unpredictable. The people who win their mornings long-term don't have impressive routines. They have tiny, protected, non-negotiable ones. 1 glass of water before the phone, 5 minutes of silence before the noise, 1 page written before the inbox opens. Small enough that there's nothing to negotiate with. Small enough that even on the worst days, it happens. And that consistency, that tiny daily vote for who they are, compounds over months into something that looks from the outside like discipline, but from the inside feels like identity. So here's what we actually know about people who win the morning. You don't need to overhaul your life. You need to own your first 10 minutes, consistently. That's where it starts. That's where it compounds. And that's where you either win the day before it begins or spend the rest of it catching up. Subscribe to the Inner Lab. Every week, we go 1 layer deeper into the psychology of how you think, how you behave, and what actually drives the life you're building. Go deeper than the surface.